At Los Angeles Airport, flight attendants Jenny and Paula prepare for their next flight. They chat with Captain Forrest and co-pilot Wilsey, who note the low passenger count due to storms. Wilsey takes medicine for feeling unwell. Tonight's passengers include George, a solitary teenager, Bev and her husband, Dr. Kingston, who is immobile due to Parkinson's, nervous medic Shyla, Louise with her cat, germophobic Niall and Susan, and excited foreign travelers, Forrest and Nika. Henry brings a cage of hamsters, but it doesn't fit, so the attendants make him check it in. Preston, who is sneezing, seems to have the same illness as Wilsey. As the plane takes off, Jenny reminds Niall to turn off his phone, and Henry has to force him to comply. An argument ensues, and Jenny warns them about potential arrest upon landing. Henry flirts with Jenny, discussing his PhD and societal manners, then learns on the news that the CDC has surrounded a building in Los Angeles. Ralph, who feels ill, vomits on Jenny, foams at the mouth, and demands to leave. Meanwhile, the cat sneaks around and eats some of the vomit. Jenny leaves Ralph with Paula to clean up, but Ralph attacks her and tries to break into the cockpit. Wilsey locks the door, and Forrest contacts ground control. Henry, Preston, George, Paula, and Shyla subdue Ralph and restrain him. Shyla checks for injuries while Jenny, distressed, laments her ineffectiveness. Forrest announces they must land, and the plane shakes badly. Jenny and Paula struggle to move Ralph, who wakes up with red eyes and bites Paula's nose as she tries to fasten his seatbelt. Ralph goes wild again, and the passengers have to work together to force him into the bathroom and lock him inside. As the plane lands, Shyla uses the first aid kit to treat Paula, who is bleeding badly and needs urgent care. Frustrated by ground control's delay, Forrest decides to use an unassigned gate. Baggage handler Ed opens the gate just in time. Forrest and Wilsey keep the bathroom door shut while everyone else exits the plane, except Bev and Kingston, who need assistance. Ed leads them to another gate, but it's locked, and no one responds on the radio. They have to use an employee entrance to get into the airport's staging area. Ed finds all doors locked and confirms they are under lockdown, with everything visible on security cameras. An argument breaks out, but sirens interrupt them. They see ambulances and police outside, but the window is covered. A voice announces they are quarantined and must wait for help. The passengers call their families and then blame Jenny for the situation. Jenny is unsure how to respond until Shyla suggests using a medical kit in her luggage to help Paula. Jenny, Ed, and a few passengers search for Shyla's luggage, but the power goes out. With Ed's flashlight, they return to the plane and find Wilsey and Forrest are missing. Jenny opens the bathroom to find it covered in blood. Preston, looking for his laptop, bumps into Kingston, who points to chewed-through handcuffs. Ed cuts through the carpet to reach a hatch leading to the baggage hold. Jenny grabs the medical kit while Niall retrieves a gun from his suitcase. Ed is startled by a rodent, which Henry thinks might be one of his escaped hamsters. Jenny spots Preston's blood-covered laptop, and then Wilsey, now covered in blood and running on all fours, appears. An infected Forrest attacks Jenny, but Niall shoots him, getting some blood on his face. The group exits the plane and finds Kingston thrown from his wheelchair and Preston unconscious with a bite on his neck. Jenny discovers Bev, who is crying for help, but she too transforms and attacks. Jenny escapes Bev and the guys block the door to keep her out. Back with the group, Shyla continues treating Paula, while Susan cleans blood from Niall's face, and they share a kiss. Henry and Ed barricade the door with furniture, and Jenny, noticing blood drops and the absence of the captain, takes charge. Shyla reveals this is an unknown disease, and Jenny recalls the quarantined building from the news. Kingston spots a rat with red eyes, which bites him before George manages to knock it away. The group catches the rat in a bucket, and Shyla treats Kingston's wound. They decide to lock Kingston in a crate to prevent any potential transformation. Ed finds a tag on the rat, indicating it escaped from a lab. George accuses Henry of lying about the hamsters, but Henry denies it, claiming lab rats wouldn't have passed security. As they seek comfort, Ralph attacks Jenny, and the group uses a hose to subdue him. Ed then receives a radio message that the CDC has arrived. The officers enter and hold everyone at gunpoint. taking the rat and Niall's gun and administer injections to Paula and Kingston. The group demands an explanation, but the officers only mention protocol. They then insist everyone gets an injection. Louise volunteers, but before she is injected, her cat bites her neck and runs away. As an officer opens fire but misses every shot, Kingston transforms and attacks him, biting him. The other officers quickly shoot Kingston and try to leave, but find the door locked. They shoot at the door to force it open and run outside. Forrest seizes the opportunity to follow them, but is shot by the police, who kill everyone except the one officer, who is only shot in the leg. The group pulls the surviving officer back inside and closes the door. They hear infected people approaching and hide inside a container. Susan hesitates when she sees Niall foaming at the mouth, so the others drag her inside, explaining that he's infected too. Once the container's sealed, Shyla points out that the injections were different colors, meaning they weren't just following protocol but administering different treatments. Henry grabs a gun from the officer and forces him to speak. The officer reveals he's not from the CDC but from the CBDT, Chemical, Biological, Domestic Terrorism Organization, which operates under Homeland Security. A unit of theirs visited the LA apartment earlier, found a bioterror lab created by a cult, and discovered that a cure based on a survivor had made things worse. This group was intended to be the next trial. The officer confirms that the rats carry the disease and then takes his own life. Nika has a breakdown, while Ed remembers that the terminal often floods due to an old drainage tunnel, which could be their escape route. Wilsey suddenly appears through an opening in the container and grabs Ed. Henry tries to shoot him but finds he's out of bullets. Ed tells George to lift the container, crushing Wilsey against a beam. The group leaves the container, and Ed leads them through the terminal. But Jenny notices Henry is missing. Nika, walking at the back, is suddenly dragged away, so the group rushes upstairs to escape. Meanwhile, Henry secretly accesses a bag. As they run, Jenny trips and finds Paula, now transformed. Jenny is forced to fight Paula with a wrench and eventually pushes her off a platform, killing her. The group reaches an office and finds terminal blueprints showing a path to the drainage tunnel. George discovers that he stole Henry's bag and finds suspicious documents about lab experiments and a mysterious box. Susan and Niall, who have found them, try to attack, but Henry returns just in time to shoot them both. Ed finds the bag is empty and opens the box, revealing medicine and a syringe. Henry then admits he brought the rats and is part of the cult mentioned by the officer. Henry's goal is to rid the world of humans, who he believes are becoming increasingly violent and destructive. He threatens to kill Jenny if George doesn't give up the antidote. Ed intervenes but gets shot and killed. Terrified, the others give Henry the antidote. Henry mixes it with blood from his wound and injects it into his eye, explaining that his group has infiltrated various organizations to smuggle the rats past security. Henry decides to leave with George as a hostage. Jenny tries to stop him, but Henry knocks her down and escapes with George and the blueprints. Jenny is later found by an infected Preston. She manages to evade him and lures him into a machine, where she kills him by hitting him with a hatch lid. Jenny continues searching for George and takes a different path when she sees the transformed Nika nearby. In another room, she meets Shyla, who has found the officer's thermal goggles. Shyla puts them on Jenny and reveals she's been bitten. She asks Jenny to find George while she distracts the remaining infected. Shyla returns to the main room and draws the infected's attention, leading them to overwhelm and kill her. Jenny uses the goggles to find a hole in the wall that Henry opened to access the tunnel. Just as she's about to enter, Louise grabs her. Jenny fights back with a wrench, knocking Louise down. She then navigates through the space between the walls, following the blood trail left on the ground. She gets scared by some mice, but continues on. Following the trail, Jenny finds the blueprints and Henry's shirt near a ladder leading into the drainage tunnel. She looks down and sees George, who tells her that the antidote didn't work and that Henry has also transformed. Ignoring George's warnings, Jenny descends and notices blood splattering on her goggles. Suddenly, Henry appears and attacks her, causing her to drop the goggles. As Henry throws Jenny around, George puts on the goggles, grabs a gun, and shoots Henry. Free again, Jenny retrieves the goggles and uses a wrench to finish Henry with a blow to the head. Flames then erupt from the hatch, signaling that the terminal is being burned down. The main exit is blocked, so Jenny discovers a baggage tunnel and kicks off the lid. George is too scared to go first, so Jenny gives him the goggles and lets him go ahead for safety. As explosions are heard outside, they hurry through the tunnel. Jenny starts to feel weak and realizes she's infected. George notices her vomiting but insists on not leaving her behind. Jenny agrees to keep moving for his sake. They reach an exit blocked by bars, but George manages to squeeze through. When he turns around, a transformed Jenny tries to reach through the bars to grab him. Thankfully, she's too large to get through, so George escapes by removing his jacket. George finally makes it out of the airport, while Louise's cat also escapes and heads into the city.
Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and stay connected with us.